Anyway, Sean Devaney for Heavy.com. He said the Lakers and LeBron James are split right now in terms of who they want to bring in as far as head coach. Most of the front office seems zeroed in on Darvin Ham, with former coaches Terry Stotts and Kenny Atkinson also in the mix, Devaney wrote. Ham, briefly an assistant with the Lakers, and according to the league, he's a favorite of Phil Jackson, Kurt Rambis layer of the Lakers' decision-makers. Quote from one Western Conference executive, I think those guys want a young coach they can mold a little bit. I don't think Darvin is a pushover by any means. I think they want a guy that they can point in a direction they want to go, more traditional basketball, using Russell Westbrook a certain way. And the Doc Rivers rumors seems the players and perhaps general manager Rob Pelinka too would rather see an experienced win-now coach in the sidelines. If LeBron could pick, the executive said, it's pretty certain he'd pick Doc. So therein lies kind of the issue, right? It's like there's a bunch of levels. First, you don't know if you actually get Doc, but I do think that Doc, if he's smart, he'd want out. If nothing else, to reset the shot clock, and that job, while difficult, will likely never be there for him again. Does that make sense? And, by the way, Doc Rivers, think about it. I would think he'd be the first guy to coach the Lakers and the Celtics. That seems bizarre. And it's not like Doc, he coached the Clippers, obviously, and now the Sixers. He's coached Orlando and Boston. But I think this would be a shot clock reset, right? No matter what you think of Philly, I don't think anybody thinks they're winning a championship with James Harden as one of their two best players at this point in time in his career. And when you have the ultimate James Harden sycophant in Daryl Morey helping run the team, I don't think James Harden's going anywhere. So Doc probably would prefer it. I don't know if he can get to it. But I also think that part of this is the dysfunction of the Lakers. Right? It's the dysfunction of the Lakers. In that it's not that big a deal that a player has a preference, but the fact that the player's preference is becoming publicized, that becomes a big deal, especially when it runs counter to the people running the organization. And a lot of this is the idea you hear. You've heard this before in football. If you have two quarterbacks, you don't have one, right? I would even tell you, like Jimbo Fisher. Well, there's a lot of Jimbo Fisher stuff that's not a positive. I don't agree with. When he took the job coming over from Florida State, he said, if everybody's not pulling in the same direction, you ain't winning anything. And this is the perfect example of it. The idea that they're pulling in completely separate directions, right? You have one side of the organization who's like, you know what, let's get a young former player, a guy who's been here a little bit, been around the league. Let's let him learn. He'll make some mistakes and do some good things. Like, Ime Udoka's similar, right? And then you have a LeBron, which is, that's as old school as old school. Like, let's get a guy who's won one before. He's ready to win now. Players coach. Ooh, that feels hard. That feels hard. When you have two different points of view, two different perspectives, and it becomes public, that's like having two quarterbacks. Nothing good could come of it. And then the idea that somebody continues to, and this one is another Western Conference executive, but there's Magic Johnson's been talking about it, and there's been other leak reports. All this leaking stuff, like, that doesn't happen with the best of the best of the best. You bring in people, you interview them, you hire a coach. That's what the best-run organizations do. The Lakers and the vacillating and the amount of time that they've had, and even the way in which they pick apart what Frank Vogel did, considering the roster he was given, that's got bad job written all over it. Because even if you get the job and you're Darvin Ham, and the front office supports you, at the end of the day, you weren't LeBron's choice. And that's a really hard one to overcome. And if you're Doc Rivers and LeBron supports you and the front office isn't all in on it, then the second something goes wrong, you're like, another bad LeBron decision. That's a hard one. It's a hard one. But that's the Lakers, where it's not like they're close. It's not like, well, you got this guy, and they're both similar. Two diametrically opposed in terms of backgrounds and amount of experience. Everything is completely opposite of each other with the exception of the fact that they're both former players. Although Doc Rivers is a former very good player, Darvin Ham was just a guy in the league, right? Freak athlete, unbelievable rebounder, and a great Texas Tech team. Just he's a guy that if you didn't know he played in the league, you're not missing a ton of anything. As opposed to Doc Rivers is a really good player and has been a very good head coach and has gotten incredible amount of opportunities. Jay Stu, when you hear this, what do you think?
I don't like either of the choices, but then the follow-up question is, then who do you like? I don't have the answer to that. I just don't think either of these guys are going to move the needle or be successful. I think all this next season has to do with Russell Westbrook, and all the tea leaves are pointing to the fact that he's going to be on the team. So it's not going to be a successful season, I think, either way. But yeah, this is like typical Lakers in that we know their business way ahead of time, and somebody is always leaking this stuff. I'm not sure what the strategy is here. Do they put this stuff out to like gauge the public's reaction, or is there just somebody who is irresponsibly sending notes to reporters after every meeting?
I don't know, but it's definitely a bizarre one that they always it's always leaking. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's It's like who does, by the way, want to captain the Titanic? That's one of them. Like, wait, I get the Lakers job. Sweet. I have to keep Russell Westbrook. Okay, that's one of those jobs that you're probably better off coming in second place for. Like if you're Darvin Ham, you might be best out. Like I know that there's still the carrot of you might have one more LeBron year and Anthony Davis, and you might be able, but that feels like fool's gold. Yeah, John Ramos.
When you played for different coaches in college and in professional basketball, did you have a preference? Like, did you want the grizzled veteran coach that had won before, that had pedigree, or did you want some guy coming in with fresh ideas, something new, something fresh that maybe could spark the guys? What did you prefer when you were playing, and do you think that transferred over to these guys?
I just, in all honesty, I was never in this position, so. I mean, like, look, the NBA, like Doc Rivers is almost the new Bill Fitch, right? That's what it feels. He's like the new Bill Fitch, and that like this guy's getting another job. Like, really? All that said, I think Doc is better than how he's perceived. I just do. I think he's better than how he's perceived. On the other side, I'm not. I like the idea of a Darvin Ham. I like the idea of new energy and new thoughts. I just don't know what, I don't know what the level of buy-in from LeBron and those guys will be. And therein lies the rub. I don't know did that make any sense? Did that work?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. Byron, what do you think? Like again, this is, we look around the league. Ime Udoka looks like he's going to the finals. He had never been a head coach before. He had been with the Nets for a little bit and the Spurs for a long period of time and a former player. It's pretty obvious that those guys respect him, and he's done some excellent things. He also still has Brad Stevens helping him. On the other side, you have Steve Kerr. He had never coached before, and he's going back to the NBA. It looks they're one win away from going to the NBA Finals.
They had guys that wanted to be coached.
Yeah.
That's that. It's crazy because I was asked this last week and it didn't dawn on me, Doug, is that in years past you would say, would you want the Lakers job? It's an automatic yes.
Yes.
100%. Top team in the, biggest brand, as we talked about recently. Like, that is the absolute no-brainer that you say yes. And right now, that's not the case. And that's crazy for where they are. We ridicule the Knicks, for just on where that franchise has been. And stands for the Lakers' bubble title. Their last run over the last 8 or 9 years mirrors what has been going on with the New York Knicks.
Oh, I think it's been worse.
Yeah, it's just of playoff appearances. Knicks have made one appearance in the last, 9 years. Lakers 2 playoff appearances in the last 9 years. Yeah, it is all over the place. And that's even, pre-LeBron as well. So it's Yeah, it's crazy because, and I'm not saying that all of it shouldn't be on LeBron, but there were problems beforehand. You think LeBron is the save-all, and now it's kind of double the problems that they have.
Do you remember, like, again, and if you guys are looking this up, please recuse yourself. Jay Stu, do you remember who the coach was before Luke Walton?
Coach before Luke Walton was Byron.
Yeah, and who was before that?
Before Byron Scott was it D'Antoni?
Yeah, I forgot Mike D'Antoni was the coach for like a year and a half. Remember, they fired Mike Brown 5 games in the season. He was trying to put in the Princeton offense with Nash and Dwight Howard, right? Then they bring it, and so D'Antoni, they have a decent year, and they lose in the first round. And ever since then, it's just been a disaster. They won 27, 21, 17, 26, 35, 37, 52, 42, 33 games. I'd totally forgotten they went from Mike Brown, Bernie Bickerstaff had like 5 games, then Mike D'Antoni. I forgot Mike D'Antoni. I forgot about that abject disaster. That was when they had, and that was like similar almost to the Russell Westbrook thing with Nash, where Nash, he basically never played for the Lakers, and yet they carried on that contract. It was so bad. And then Kobe, of course, aged, and then Kobe got hurt, and he was never the same, and then they had that gigantic contract. Yeah, I would say that they've been worse because they've had bigger name players.
Mm-hmm.
You know? God, they're so bad. All right, so if I put it to you guys, just on the, without knowing any of the details, LeBron wants Doc, and Rambis and the rest of those front office guys want Darvin Ham, what would you do?
You got to go Doc. You're locked in with LeBron. That's if LeBron doesn't get his way, it's not going to work.
You go full LeBron?
Yes.
Jay Stu, you agree?
Dance with the devil.
I do. I agree with Dan.
Okay, what if you can't get him?
Well, then who's LeBron's plan B?
Yeah. I think I don't think he's thought that far. I do think that there's a way in which you can get Doc. It'd be expensive and they're cheap, but
yeah, the other great thing about LeBron reportedly wanting Doc is, if it fails, then all the heat doesn't go on LeBron again because we just add it to Doc Rivers.
Exactly.
So,
and the opposite is true if Darvin Ham is hired.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Then it's on LeBron. Now, I know that baseball trades managers, and I think Belichick was a part of a head coaching trade in the NFL.
Yeah, Gruden
yes,
as well.
So
has the NBA done it?
Well.
Has the NBA ever done this?
I think it has. I'm trying to think where it is. But what do they have to trade? that one
Russell Westbrook?
Pick? They have that one first-round pick. You can't trade players because it doesn't work with the salary cap.
They should trade a future head coach back to Philadelphia.
One of the guys on the bench.
That's crazy. The whole thing is nuts. The whole thing is absolutely, absolutely nuts. Ugh.